Lincoln Riley is celebrating a 3-year anniversary since he was promoted to the head coaching position at the University of Oklahoma following a historic run by Bob Stoops, 18 years, one national championship. I mean, All-American after All-American, Heisman winners. You name it, Bob accomplished it. But one of the things that has been really interesting to look at is just how good Lincoln Riley has been in his first 3 years. As a matter of fact, with his 36-6 record in 3 years, we also get in there a 13-1 road record, 3 Big 12 titles, 3 college football playoff appearances, asterisks there, 2 Heisman winners, 1 Heisman runner-up, and 2 #1 overall draft picks, and also the thing for which he has made his name, really, quarterback whisperer. You have Pro Football Focus giving Baker Mayfield a grade of 94.6, which was #1 in the country. You have them giving Kyler Murray a grade of 94.6, which was #1 in the country. And then Jalen Hurts at 91.8, just #3 in the country last year. And we can all agree that Hurts was the worst of those 3 quarterbacks, and all he did was get drafted in the second round, even as he passed for over 3,800 yards and rushed for over 1,200 yards, nearly 1,300 yards in his only season as a quarterback at the University of Oklahoma. But back to that 36 number, those 36 wins are second to Walter Camp. Yeah, that Walter Camp. Walter Camp in his first 3 years won 41 games, but we also need to think of him differently for obvious reasons. He's considered the father of American football. He was a halfback at Yale, and as a captain and coach, which is one of the reasons I think this is important to point out, he started his career 67-2 at Yale, right? And we're talking about 1892, leading Yale to a 13-0 season. That is the company for which Lincoln Riley keeps when we're talking about how good he's been at winning football games early in his career. But the one statistic that I believe matters more than any of these others is 0-4, or more to the point, 0-3. 3 consecutive appearances in the college football playoff, 0 wins. 2 embarrassing losses. 1 17-point lead given up and beaten down in what effectively is a neutral site game. Not just effectively is a neutral site game. And by I said effectively, I'm thinking that somebody in Pasadena might have had a home field advantage, but they didn't. Georgia and Oklahoma. That's it. The Rose Bowl is for the Pac-12 and whoever they thought the best Eastern team was. That year's in the college football playoffs, so you end up with a Heartland team that leans south, and you get the South team all the way traveling west, and they give up the booty to Nick Chubb, Sonny Michel, Roquan Smith, and Jake friggin' Fromm. That also is the year for which I believe Oklahoma should have won a national championship, and I blame Mike Stoops for that because that's the best Oklahoma team that we have seen this decade. Now in 2021, I believe that Oklahoma should be in the driver's seat to win a national championship. But that said, thinking about what Lincoln Riley has accomplished as the head man in charge, it's not just what he's done on the football field, although that is what matters most. It's also the way that he is recruited. Because since taking over the job, he has recommitted the program to being a dominant recruiter. Annie Hansen getting elevated to executive director of football recruiting and now an assistant AD. You have an investment in a digital content engine led by Zach Heffley that is ridiculously good at pumping out digital ephemera for the recruits and to push forward the agenda of Oklahoma football and to allow people to remember 5 straight Big 12 championships, 2 Heisman winners, 2 #1 overall draft picks, a stranglehold over the Big 12 conference. And that's where I draw the line between Lincoln Riley and Walter Camp once again, because the reason that we remember Walter Chauncey Camp as the father of American football is because he was the guy traveling the country telling everybody how to play. We called it scientific football back then. He would go to your school and show you exactly how to line up. The differences between American football and soccer, between American football and rugby and the similarities. He would give you his playbook. He would do more than hold clinics. He would write in the paper a column, how to play football. And his teachings were extended to other institutions that also crossed the color line. That is important. These things are important because they also, again, lead us back to Lincoln Riley, who is standing behind his players, for which are mostly black. These things matter as you're continuing to have conversations about what Oklahoma football can and cannot do, in the same way that we were having discussions about what Yale could or could not do. And one of the last things I think needs to happen is we talk about football is we need to get more HBCUs playing against PWIs, predominantly white institutions as they were, and get that rivalry going once again. Because one of the things that I really hated about the 60s and the 50s really is that we didn't see a Jackson State or a Texas Southern or a FAMU play against an Oklahoma or a Notre Dame or a Penn State at the height of their powers. I would have really loved to see that, because that would have, I think, helped with all of this. But what Riley has done very well is relate to his players and relate to his fan base, because we are very critical while also fanning the flame of who Lincoln Riley is and should be, while he is also very much being his own man. This man from Muleshoe, Texas, who has a true affinity for Tiger Woods, not because he's such a golf dude, but because he watched Tiger Woods destroy people and wanted to be that competitive and that good, is able to relate to all peoples by listening to what they have to say and also being very good at what he's very good at. And that is unquestioned. And that's the other part about it. I find this really interesting. Riley is very quick here lately to admit what he doesn't know. My favorite game day segment of all time is still Gene Wojciechowski sitting down with Lincoln Riley and his wife Caitlin separately to ask fundamental questions about what home life is like. Asking Caitlin, hey, do you think Lincoln Riley knows the garage door code? Nope. Do you think Lincoln knows how much a gallon of milk costs? I don't think he shopped for groceries in 15 years. Do you think he knows what the address to your house is? Nope, he gave out the wrong address just the other day. These things are he also admitting what he doesn't know, and genuflecting in the position of people that do. That's one of the reasons I believe Cale Gundy still works at Oklahoma, why Bill Bedenbaugh still works at Oklahoma. Same thing with Calvin Thibodeau, the same thing with Dennis Simmons. Those men, particularly Simmons, Gundy, and Bedenbaugh, are routinely guys that are looked at as being poached. Just as Alex Grinch was looked at as a guy who was going to be poached. And what does Riley say about these things, at least publicly? Yeah, that means we're doing this right. That's what you want. We are a place for which if you do well here, and we do well, we want you to achieve what you want. If that is to be a head coach, Godspeed. He has a sense of security that leads itself to BDE. The man is unafraid, except for that one instance with Austin Kendall, of what might happen to his program if people come looking and asking questions. He goes into clinics and says, hey, this is how we run mesh. This is why I do it this way. This is why there are only this many plays on this napkin that I'm calling from. This is how we have decided to build our program. And in many ways, and he'll be the first person to say this, all he's doing is what Bob Stoops has done. And he said in a teleconference last week, if somebody said that I'm Bob Stoops 2.0, I would take that as a tremendous compliment. And he should, because Bob Stoops handed him the keys to a pink Cadillac. Yeah, I said it. Fight me. And in handing him the keys to a pink Cadillac, he was able to do for Lincoln Riley what nobody was able to do for him. Give him a pristine vehicle in good condition and say, hey, drive it. When Bob got to Oklahoma, shambles. I guess that's going too far. John Blake was not achieving what people had come to expect from Oklahoma football in the 80s, the 70s, certainly in the 50s. So he was revamping the whole thing. Brought in a strength coach that he loved. Cale Gundy gets hired on. It gets Mike Leach away from Kentucky. And here we go, right? Riley got it to inherit a staff that all wanted him to have the job, which I found to be the most underrated aspect of the transition from offensive coordinator to head coach for Lincoln Riley, is that not only did the guys he used to call colleagues want to be the dude that he worked for, but they all stay on. They all say, no, this is the best place to be. And we all believe in Lincoln Riley.